This is the Ramesseum, the Great Hall of Ramses. We're in the front courtyard now, and we're heading back towards the opening wall where the great door once stood. Before we do that, I want you to take a look, and we'll see if we can see it right up here into the stone. There he is, Rameses the Great. You'll notice he's so much bigger than the people that are entreating him. Size meant power, and if you were in high authority, you were always larger than everyone else, at least in the paintings. As you walked in or walked out, you would see all of these hieroglyphs, all of these statements. And to be honest, I can't read them, but that's okay. On the other side of the door, you find Rameses becoming victorious in the Battle of Kadesh. I'm going to see if I can find it. But you'll notice, if you can see it, there's the chariot or the horse racing away, him on his victorious run. As you probably remember, the battle itself was a very interesting thing, but a very pivotal moment in Egyptian history, a sort of a calcifying of the reign of what would become the true Egyptians, where he overcomes the enemies from the north. You also remember it's an interesting document. As you walked in through the courtyards, you'd see all of the great giant columns all along. I'm just going to stop here. If you so desire to pause and read, if it's readable, it describes the palace itself. However, chances of you going in there on a full-time basis are pretty slim. Your entry would probably be over here into the court. Notice the remains of the giant statue, all of the pieces that have since been moved and then recollected. You'll notice them in a little pile over here. Well, many of them. We're going to pop down here and I'll let you take a look. If you want to pause here and give it a read. Otherwise, we'll just keep on going. So this would be your entranceway. Walking in past all of the statues and all the guardians and all of the proclamations of the glory of the Pharaoh into the Great Hall. So here we are on the outskirts of the Mortuary temple of Rameses the Great. The remains of the largest colossi not created on site still lying there. And the small thin steps would have had people kind of shuffling along, slowly making their way up into the temple. As they walked, they would be regaled with stories of the Pharaoh, all of his accomplishments and all of his processes, and then they would be able to enter the next courtyard, the next part of the process, the main hypostyle hall, the recreation of the cosmos. I'm going to come down here, if I can get out of the way of a light, and I will pause it so that you can do some reading. So there are 12 major columns, and there are these ones here. They're massive. You can still see the color up along the top. The sun and the elements, I assume, have faded away most of the bottom ones. But if you look along the top, the blues and the yellows and the reds are still quite visible. 12 major columns, one for each month. And on each column, descriptions, stories, the pharaoh and his wives, the gods. I'm just going to do this for a second. And now watched over by pigeons and flies. Even along the ceiling you can see all of the inscriptions. This was the major outer hall, hypostyle. And then you would have moved in to the second part, beyond the two inscripted walls. Past the portrayal of the gods giving rule to the pharaoh. And past the inner hallway, or the inner courtyard, I guess. Beautiful depiction of the trees. Just look at the detail. It's astounding. The inscribing, all the rest. Now, where you wouldn't be going is beyond here, because this place, which is no longer here, was the Holy of Holies. It was the inner temple, the place where the god himself lived. In this case, both the pharaoh and Amun-Ra. The vacant heart of the temple is what it says on the piece here. This has all been removed, but this was the most important piece, the absolute essential core. It would be the inner shrine with the relics in a cathedral. Unfortunately, that part is gone. But what we are left with is still no less impressive. And a huge thing for those who are left behind.